afternoon, fellow Toastmasters.
Good afternoon.
From the first time that I was trained to be a lifeguard, I've made 10 rescues, but none of them were more important than my first rescue, which I will tell you about today. I was just 17 years old, and I was a beach guard on Lake Michigan for the Milwaukee County Park Commission. We were a elite group, and we were as good as any guards anywhere. We ran military squares on the beach. We scanned our water back and forth 6 times per minute, and we relieved on stand like the changing of the guard. The day of my first rescue was sunny, warm, and calm. The water was still dark and murky from a violent storm the day before. I was on stand number 2, in the middle, where we always open the beach first. I noticed a man in waist-deep water. He was about 20 yards to my right and about 15 yards from the shore. Suddenly, he fell to neck-deep water, into a small but deep depression that had been made from the violent storm the day before. He was startled initially, but he recovered quickly. Others swam or strolled through the area, but no one else stepped into that deep hole. About a half hour later, from the shore, a young girl, about 5 years old, approached the depression made in the sand. She stopped in waist-deep water for her. I did not know whether she could swim or not, but I was glad she had not ventured any further. And then, as if to tempt fate, both hers and mine, she started going deeper. I didn't see her go down. It happened that fast. There was no arms flailing. There was no head bobbing. There was no splash, not even a ripple. I immediately stood up and blew my whistle. I took my helmet and my glasses, and I threw them into the chair behind me, and I leaped from stand number 2 with my whistle still going. When I hit the ground, I still had my eyes on that faceless spot in the lake that I had seen some half hour earlier. I can't believe it. A faceless spot I had seen some half hour earlier. I did it again. I know I need to know. I know. That faceless spot I had seen some half hour earlier. Oh, here, this worked out well. I'm sorry, I blew this. Now, everything was in slow motion. I moved every muscle towards her. First, into the water. First to the water, and then into the water. I must not fall, lest I'll lose sight of that precious point on the water's surface. Now, my mind raced. I thought of all those times that I couldn't find that tennis ball or baseball, even though I knew where I'd hit or thrown it. I must not fall forward. But then I felt myself falling. I realized I had stepped in a depression into the sand. Was it the black hole? Was that a hand that I just grazed? I reached down behind me and made contact again. I grabbed the small arm that I couldn't see, and I pulled her up and out of the water. I found my feet on higher ground. I carried her in my arms and ran toward shore. She was unconscious. More slow motion. I could hear the other lifeguards yelling to their megaphones for people to get out of the water. I realized she was not breathing. My responsibility would be to take her to dry sand and set her down on her back, tilt her head back, and give her mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. Another guard would get the oxygen resuscitator and bring it up and put it across from her. How long would this take? Could we save her? People everywhere on the beach, standing and looking, they were usually lying down. More slow motion. I realized she was, more slow motion. And then She coughed and choked and coughed again and started crying. I realized crying was good. Crying was great. This girl had great lungs, and clear lungs too. When I got to the beach, my head guard was there, and he directed me to take her up to the first aid station. I was carrying the crying, wailing little girl while her mother trailed behind me. All of a sudden, slow motion stopped. It was a beautiful sunny day, and I had done well, better than I have done in this speech. Hundreds of bewildered faces were looking at me and asking each other what had happened. I wanted to speak. I wanted to tell them that crying was good. But I focused on my precious little bundle and carried it across that beach and up those stairs. By the time we got to the first aid station, the girl had stopped crying. The head guard interviewed the mother while I examined the little girl, who now looked normal. I passed her on to her grateful mother, and the head guard excused them both. Then he asked me a few questions, and summed things up by complimenting me on the rescue. He told me to take a half-hour lunch break and then left me all alone. While I had remained calm throughout the entire rescue, I now began to shake uncontrollably. The enormity and excitement of the rescue had finally caught up with me. But I thought it was more than just that. No longer was I a boy that others cared for, but I had cared for someone else. I had carried the wailing little girl instead of passing her off to someone else. And now I realized that I was responsible for others and their lives, and that I had taken a small step to being a man. Thank you. Now,